Today's topic is care for a mouthful of sky, vision and empathy for care. And we have with us Dr. Songjukta Basu as speaker of the day. And it's my privilege to introduce Dr. Basu to you all. Dr. Basu is presently serving as an associate professor at Department of Philosophy, Rabindra Bharati University, Kolkata. She has been teaching for 38 long years. She has done her PhD from Jadavpur University in the area of logic, and her research interest includes logic and analytic philosophy of language. And her areas of interest are Western epistemology and metaphysics, feminist philosophy, etc. And she has publications in many national and international journals, and some of which are graded consequence, some methodological notions generalized with in fundamental informatica, and also introducing grade to some methodological notions with fluid academic publisher, many valued logics, fuzzy logics and graded consequence with Springer. And she is joint editor of an international book revisiting Principia Mathematica after 100 years. This is with Gangchil, and she has many more other publications as well. So we are greatly honored to have with us this outstanding personality for today. And we are eagerly waiting to hear from Dr. Basu. Please, over to Dr. Basu. Madam, please. Madam, you are muted. Madam, you are on mute.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I would like to thank Ddmrm Motijhil Rabindra Mahavidyalaya, its IQAC coordinator, Dr. Savitri Datta, the head of the Department of Philosophy, Moumita Banerjee, and Yasmin Sultana, another faculty in the Department of Philosophy, for approaching me and inviting me to give a talk in today's webinar organized by their renowned institution. As already mentioned by Dr. Datta, the title of my talk is Care for a Mouthful of Sky, Reason and Empathy for Care. The second use of care is within inverted commas because I want to emphasize the spatial sense in which the term care will be used in course of my talk. It is an incredible time. It is an awful time. Since December 2019, the world is gradually falling under the grip of a very infectious disease called SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. Within months, this disease spread to many countries, including India, infecting and killing people. World Health Organization was forced to declare this disease a pandemic. Apart from infecting people, that is affecting them physically, COVID-19 is upsetting the life of people socially, economically, and moreover, psychologically. There is uncertainty everywhere. We are uncertain about our physical safety. We are uncertain about our financial security. We are uncertain about the education of our children. And day by day, the future is appearing uncertain to us. As a result, anxiety, hopelessness, mental depression are on the rise. We feel as if we are confined in a cave with no way out. And we crave for a mouthful of sky to fly our wings. In my talk, I would like to explain how, with the help of reason and empathy, that will ultimately lead to a caring relationship from a particular person to another particular person, we can try to live well and help others to live well in this difficult time. Now, we know Aristotle said that human beings are by nature rational. I think human beings are characteristically both rational and emotional. Reason and emotion are two features that compensate each other in human beings. And without either of them, it is not possible to lead a good life. Reason helps us to think correctly, to take decision judiciously. In the present situation of pandemic, we are getting various information from various sources. Now, when we draw conclusion, when we make decision, we depend upon deductive inference from given information, given data, we arrive at a conclusion. But however much the deductive process is correct, it cannot ensure the truth of our conclusion unless the given data or information on which we rely, which we call premises, are not true. So in this situation, while making decision, we have to be very careful in choosing information, because information that we get from various sources, that we collect from various sources, many of them are wrong or partially true or distorted. Since the onset of this pandemic, innumerable number of research papers on novel coronavirus, both medical and socio-economic, have been published in various journals. It is of utmost importance that before publishing a result, a research paper, its results must be tested many times. But unfortunately, different journals and digital archives are overflowing with hurriedly published research papers based on inadequate evidences. In many of these papers, claims are made that are contradictory to each other, which create much confusion and anxiety among us. I will cite two examples of such papers. One is a paper published in an internationally reputed journal on the 11th of March regarding the detrimental effect of the medicine ibuprofen on the lung inflammation of COVID patients. As the paper was published, then and there, the French Health Ministry banned the use of this medicine on COVID patients, who also advised against its use. Meanwhile, different newspapers and news channels, they were reporting accounts of loss of life because of the application, because of the use of ibuprofen on COVID patients. But a few days later, another paper was published where a group of scientists claim that the result of the previous paper was not based on sufficient evidences. My second example is another research paper published on the 20th of March, again in an internationally reputed journal, on about the good effect of hydroxychloroquine on COVID patients. In fact, many such research papers were published during that time. And we all remember what an uproar was made at that time in procuring and stocking this medicine, hydroxychloroquine. And as a result, those patients who suffer from chronic rheumatic arthritis, they were deprived of their regular doses. But scientists are not yet sure about the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine on COVID patients after so many trials. Now, not only biological scientists, even applied mathematicians, statisticians, information scientists, they are also providing us with information as to when the graph of rise in infection will reach its peak in India. And the time calculated very often changes, we all know. An eminent professor of ethics at Carnegie Mellon University has warned in a paper published in the journal Science against publishing half-baked research results. He says that common man's anxiety and confusion have reached at such a level that it is better not to publish any research results than to publish research papers on insufficient data. Swagatam Das from Indian Statistical Institute recently in a daily newspaper has commented in an article that what is more dangerous nowadays is the baseless fear about novel coronavirus than the virus itself. Alongside the pandemic, the real pandemic, what is going on now is, he calls, infodemic, that is pandemic of wrong information. So it is quite obvious that while we draw conclusion on the basis of premises, we have to be very cautious about the information or data contained in the premises. We have to check whether the information that we are relying on in drawing a conclusion, in taking a decision, is reliable or not. Does it have credibility or not? Now, to test the truth of a claim, to taste the truth of an information is not the task of deduction. It is the task of inductive logic. I will again use two examples of inductive inferences, by using one of which we can diagnose a claim, a hypothesis to be wrong. Suppose it is widely circulated that a particular medicine, if taken regularly, will prevent infection from coronavirus. Now, if we want to judge the credibility of this claim, of this hypothesis, then we can apply eliminative induction as proposed by Bacon and later on by John Stuart Mill. What we have to do is to find out an instance where a person has been regularly taking that particular medicine and yet is infected by coronavirus. Or else we can find out an instance where a person has never taken that particular medicine and is not yet infected, though he is exposed regularly to external circumstances. Indeed, he or she is taking all the precautionary measures like wearing masks, covering his or her head, sanitizing his hands and feet regularly when out of home and when coming back home. These two negative instances help us eliminate regular intake of that particular prescribed drug as a non-cause of prevention from the infection of coronavirus. Now, I am taking another example where another type of induction, if used wrongly, it can produce bad results, wrong results. This type of induction is called enumerative induction, where conclusion is drawn on the basis of observed frequencies of certain attribute in a given population. Let us take an example in general. Suppose we want to know the proportion of women in West Bengal suffering from anemia. What we have to do is to select randomly a number of women from various social and economic strata. Suppose the number of this random sample is n, and after testing it is found that of n number of women randomly selected, r number of women are suffering from anemia. Then by enumerative induction, we can say that the proportion of women in West Bengal suffering from anemia is R, with a margin of error plus minus q, where q is a very small number. Of course, this conclusion is probable to a degree p, because we know that conclusion of inductions are always probable, where the degree of probability can be more or less. Now, if the number of samples increase, if the samples are chosen from various circumstances, obviously then the probability of the enumerative of the conclusion of the enumerative induction will increase. Now, I will discuss one wrong application of this enumerative induction. In various newspapers and news channels, we were hearing that this country is having this number of cases of infection, that country is having that number of cases of infection, and a comparison was regularly made between the number of cases of infection between different countries. Now, suppose it is said that the total number of cases of infection in India is, say, 40,000 per day, or the total number of active cases of infection till date in India is, say, 1 lakh. And the same number of cases of infection per day or till date occurs in another country. But what the media fails to mention, they fail to mention is the total number of population. India has a population of 1 crore 30 lakhs. Of this huge number of population, say 30,000 of cases of infection per day is not comparable with the same number of cases of infection in another state or another country whose number of population is, say, 50 lakh or say 80 lakh. But at that time, we were hearing continuously from different news channels and news media that আক্রান্তের সংখ্যা লাফিয়ে লাফিয়ে বাড়ছে। So, this news media were not mentioning, not taking into consideration the population of the respective countries between which they are comparing. I just apologize here. I would like to correct one mistake that I have made. Unintentionally, I have said that the population of India is 1 crore 30 lakhs. It is actually 130 crores. Anyway, my point is that while considering the or comparing the number of cases of infection, we have to take into account the total number of population of the respective countries. Because what we need to know is actually the proportion, the ratio of infection in proportion to the number of population. And some other factors are also to be taken into consideration, like density of population and the number of test cases. Suppose a country or a state is making fewer tests, then obviously the number of reported cases of infection will be much less. And if no tests are made, then the reported cases of infection will be just zero. And the greater the number of cases, of test cases, say per thousand or per 10,000, then the number of reported cases will also increase. So by just looking at the number without considering all these factors, the total number of population, the density of the population, the number of tests being performed, mere number of cases of infection will not give us any information. But what common man's reaction will be? They will be panicked. Because we were hearing every day that আক্রান্তের সংখ্যা লাফিয়ে লাফিয়ে বাড়ছে. So my point is that when we will take decision, when we'll make conclusion, we first have to check our data, our information, on the basis of which we are drawing conclusion. And it is another thing that is in fact psychology of human nature, that the more we fear something, the more we get attracted to it. So the more we get anxious hearing the news of increase in infection, increase in the number of deaths, the more we search for, look for such information. And this is called doom scrolling. We have to desist ourselves from doing that. But it is true that under extreme stress, one may fail to think rationally, judiciously, and any attempt to explain him or her rationally that his or her fear is baseless will fall on deaf ears. What we need then is to empathize with him or her. To empathize with someone is to put oneself in his or her position, to feel her mental condition from his or her point of view. though one might not experience it. To empathize is to understand that other person's needs. In a word, to empathize with someone is to get involved in a connection with him, to get connected with him. And in this regard, I would like to recount an incident which perhaps is known to many of you. Once, an American journalist went to take interview from a monk of Ramakrishna Mission. The journalist asked the monk to explain the difference between contact and connection. Instead of answering the journalist directly, the monk questioned him whether his parents were alive, how many siblings they have, etc. The journalist, though perplexed, answered him. The monk then again asked, when did the journalist last talk to his father? And when did they have they had a family get together last? The journalist, now totally confused, answered that it was almost a month since he last talked to his father over the phone, and the last family get together was 2 years back. The monk then quietly asked him again, did he spend time with his father during that get together? How many times their siblings share breakfast or dinner or lunch? How many times they sat together with their father and talked to each other? Now, the journalist became ashamed. The monk said, I'm sorry if I hurted you, but that is the answer to your question. You have contacts with your siblings, with your father, but you have no connection with them. Because connection means sharing and caring. Now, empathy is the basis of a secure and permanent caring relation from one particular person to other particular person. And one should not confuse empathy with sympathy. Sympathy is having a sense of shared similarities with another person's feelings, though one may not necessarily have those feelings. Even while sympathizing with a person, one may not know whom he or she is sympathizing with. So sympathy is less personal. Empathy is personal. In 1980s, Carol Gilligan and Neil Nordings emphasized upon the significant role of care in understanding the nature of a moral problem and in settling it. Gilligan's opinion was that not all moral problems can be solved by applying a universal formula irrespective of the particular context of the problem. She further noted that immediate personal relationships cannot also be ignored always in taking moral decisions. What turned the tables in this regard was a survey conducted at Harvard University by Gilligan and Lawrence Kohlberg on boys and girls in adolescence. The motive of the survey was to evaluate the moral growth of adolescent boys and girls. A problem was given separately, the same problem was given separately to a boy named Jake and to a girl named Amy. The problem was that a man named Heinz, had his wife in a critical condition. He needs to buy a life-saving drug to save the life of his ailing wife. But the price of the drug was too high for him to afford. And the druggist was not ready to lower the price of the drug. The question that was asked to Jake and Amy was what Heinz should do in this situation. Now the boy, Jake, he saw the problem as a conflict between two moral principles. One is stealing is bad, and the other is it is good to save one's life. Jake's conclusion, the boy's conclusion, was that it is more just for Heinz to steal the drug and save the life of his wife. On the other hand, Amy did not give one decisive solution to the problem. Neither did she think that Heinz should steal, because she thought that if by stealing Heinz had to go to the prison, then his wife would be in a jeopardy in her critical condition. She needed her husband's companion by her side. Nor did Amy think that Heinz should let his wife die, because he loved his wife. Amy's proposal was more than one. She proposed that Heinz could explain his condition to the druggist and request him to lower the price or to give him the drug, taking whatever amount of money Heinz can give at that time on condition of repaying the remaining amount. Amy's another proposal was that Heinz could request some of his friends with whom he had a very good relation and borrow money from them to fill up whatever money was not there and it was deficit, and then buy the medicine to save his wife. Now, Kohlberg found Amy's proposal, Amy's solution of the problem hesitant, immature, because it was not decisive. Compared to the girl Amy's solution, Kohlberg found Jake's solution more matured. But Carol Gilligan differed with Kohlberg. She observed that Jake, the boy, was solved the problem from the point of view of justice, and Amy's solution reflected the perspective of caring relationship, which can be, according to Gilligan, an alternative mode of settling moral issues at times. Now, both Gilligan and Neil Noddings considered that one primary condition of our existence and also a primary truth of human existence is that we want to be related with others. We are not Robinson Crusoe living alone in an island. Crusoe was forced to live there alone, but we want to be related with others. They think that natural caring is the basis of ethical caring. A paradigm example of natural caring is mother-child relationship, where mother cares her child spontaneously. We all have memories of being cared for in our childhood. And also later, on many occasions in our life, where we were cared when we were ill or in sorrow. This memory of being cared for gives us a good feeling. We feel that being cared for is good, something good. And this inspires us to care for someone for whom we might not have caring feeling spontaneously. And thus, natural caring is the basis of ethical caring according to Gilligan and Noddings. Neil Noddings says that caring is a relation between the one who cares and the one cared for. There are three basic elements in a caring relationship: receptivity, responsiveness, and reciprocity. Receptivity is to listen to the experience and needs of the cared for attentively, to try to understand them, to try to understand his or her mental condition from his or her point of view. Responsiveness is trying to fulfill the cared for's needs as much as possible with true concern for the cared for's well-being. And reciprocity means that the relation proceeds not only from the carer to the cared for, but the one who is cared for must also recognize the carer's caring relationship. This is not just expressing gratitude. There is no question of humility or pity. It is a both-way relationship, which according to Gilligan is a co-feeling. Reciprocity is a co-feeling. Both the carer and the cared for must feel that this caring relationship is necessary for both of their existence and for both of their well-being, their self-development. Virginia held, another eminent feminist, says that caring is a relation in which carer and cared for share an interest in their mutual well-being. So reciprocity makes the carer and the cared for connected, and that is what we need. In the present situation of uncertainty, anxiety, hopelessness, we need to understand other person's feelings, his or her experiences, needs from his or her perspective, and try to fulfill them with true concern and thereby winning his or her trust. And this will ultimately help both the carer and the cared for to build up a caring, secure and permanent caring relationship. Now, in this difficult time, many individual persons and non-governmental groups or organizations are also extending their helping hands for the welfare of the needy people, side by side governmental welfare projects. What motivates such individual persons or non-governmental organizations in doing such welfare works is the feeling of sympathy. Their works are really commendable. However, what is lacking here is the personal touch. In many cases, the sympathizer may not know personally who he or she is sympathizing with. And the sympathizer understands their needs as he or she understands them, not as they, that is, those who are being sympathized, understand them. When different governmental programs are launched for the well-being of the poor and the underprivileged, these are these are done basically following the principle of justice as fairness. And we all accept, that is, it is accepted that the domain of personal and political are separate. The domain of public and private are separate. The area of reason and emotion are also traditionally looked upon as separate. But overcoming the opposition between these so-called binaries, if a little bit of empathy is added to both non-governmental and governmental welfare works, then the purpose of these works would be more fruitful. A caring relation from one particular person to other particular person based on empathy can build up a network of caring relationships which can be extended to a larger community. Virginia Held observes that a caring community can sustain and validate the efforts of caring people. We are all used to consider teaching as a service. The doctor or the nurse, when treats and cares for the patient, that is also in our society, in any society, is considered as a service. But the care or caring relationship in its spatial sense is not a service at all. First of all, because service is something for which one who serves is being paid. Service can be bought, but caring cannot be bought. It cannot be paid for. So when from one particular person to another particular person, this caring relationship goes to make a network of caring relationships and make a caring community, caring society, then the work of the doctor, nurses, teachers, that will add more value to their labor, to their work. In any general situation, not only in the present COVID situation, a patient or his or her family expects that the doctor and the nurse would understand their condition, their situation. That is, they expect empathy, not only service, but empathy from them also. But the patient or his or her family also have to think that the same empathy can be expected from the side of the doctors and nurses and other health workers also. And that is why Virginia Held said that a caring community where caring is not just a service, where caring is not just a one-way relation, such a caring community can sustain and validate the efforts of caring persons. Thus, I conclude by saying that key to live well and help others live well lies in taking rational decisions and developing a caring relationship with others on the basis of empathy. Thank you.
So, thank you, Dr. Basu, for such an insightful and informative lecture. It has been really a very useful and enriching session for all of us, and we have learned a new knowledge in the subject and related areas. Now, I would request Dr. Basu to take a few quick questions.
Okay.
Uh, Before going to the question answer session, I just want to make one announcement that feedback link will be shared in the chat box in a short while. Participants are requested to fill in the feedback form before 7 p.m. today evening. After 7 p.m., that link will not be work. The link will be active till 7 p.m. only. This is necessary for generating e-certificates. So I'm just going to the questions that I'm getting in the chat box. So far, there is only one question that is from Dr. Shatabdi Ghosh. She is asking, ma'am, during this pandemic, so many people are suffering from depression. What should we do to avoid the occurrence of depression?
Uh, what should we do to avoid the
Occurrence of depression.
occurrence?
Occurrence.
Actually, I'm not a psychologist, so a psychologist, a psychiatrist would perhaps better answer your question. But throughout my talk, I want to say that when someone is in depression, it is often fruitless to rationalize with him or her, but to extend a caring relationship towards her, to understand her problems, her mental condition, and try to uh, divert her mind from that uh, particular incidents or reports which make him or her depressed. But above all, I emphasize upon this caring relationship because care can go to a long way to not only to help depressed people but also in many other respects. And I think we all are victims of depression more or less at some time or other, not only during the time of pandemic. So to avoid anxiety and depression, my own suggestion is to keep ourselves busy in creative something, in doing something creative. Because depression comes often from anxiety and from the worthlessness of life. When we don't find meaning in our life, then often our own value, our value of our own life becomes less to us. So first of all, each and everyone has to respect one's own self, because we all have some potentiality to do something. We have some worth, something to do in this world. In the caring relationship that I was emphasizing so much, it was necessary that both the carer and the one who is cared for both will respect their individual selves. So to avoid depression, we will be lucky if we get some caring friend, someone caring for me, someone who will understand me. And on one's own part, to avoid depression, I think one should do something creative to make one's life, one's days meaningful.
Okay. Ma'am, there is another question uh, from the Professor Shumita Dotto. The question is, in the COVID situation, we even do not go to our neighbor's house if he or she is infected. In such situation, whether our moral values are degrading.
Just not going to my neighbor's house because the neighbor has someone infected by coronavirus is a safety measure. It is a clinical question. Even not visiting my neighbor's house, I can help him or her in so many ways. And nowadays, in many communities, people are helping such neighbors in whose house someone is infected by doing their daily course. So just by not visiting a COVID patient's house, I don't think our moral values are degrading. But I think what you wanted to say is that uh, a social stigma is attached with the person who is infected by coronavirus. And initially, perhaps even now in some cases, there was a tendency to avoid that family, to ostracize that family. That is not morally good. But just not visiting a corona patient's house, though helping him or her in other ways, is not degradation of moral values, I think.
Uh, so I would request all the participants to please, if you have any question, you can ask directly to Dr. Basu. Uh, as I don't find any other question in the chat box, I would request if any of you have any other question, please unmute yourself and ask directly.
Can I come in?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, madam. This is Pinaki. I hope you recognize me.
Oh, of course.
So it was a wonderful lecture as always. So
Thank you.
You were eagerly waiting for the lecture, and you perfectly did well as always. So I have a question which I didn't understand very clearly. That is, when you talked about three kinds of care, these were maybe reciprocity, responsiveness, or some one other division. There were
One
three
minute.
divisions. I just missed the division somehow. So
One
can you
minute.
please repeat it?
Yeah, of
Sorry.
course. 1 minute. These were
Yes.
not three
Yes.
kinds of
And
care. These were not three kinds of care. These were three basic elements or components of caring relationship. One is
okay.
receptivity. Receptivity. The second one is responsiveness. And the third one is reciprocity. Receptiveness is uh, the one who cares must listen with attention the experience and needs of the cared for, and from cared for's point of view, from his or her perspective. Responsiveness is responding to the person by trying to fulfill his needs, his or her needs, with true concern for his or her well-being. And reciprocity implies that the relation of caring must go both ways. It is not only that the carer will listen attentively to the needs of the cared for, try to meet them, have concern for the cared for, but on the side of the cared for also, he or she must recognize the caring of the carer. And both of them must realize that this caring relationship is necessary for both of their existence and their self-development. And that is why there is no question of gratitude, pity, or humility. So these are the three basic elements of caring relationship. These are not three kinds of caring. Okay?
Okay, thank you, madam. And the last
Okay.
thing that I would like to ask is, when you were talking about the different meaning of care, or rather connotation of care, so what I understand is like your understanding of care is a kind of understanding where we can say that one of the meaning or connotation of the care could be empathy. So is it the right
No,
way?
no. Care is very similar to empathy, but it is not exactly empathy, because when you empathize with someone, it is not necessary that the other person will also empathize with you. But once you empathize with some person, gradually you can bring that other person into a relationship, caring relationship. So I said that empathy is the basis of a secure, caring relationship. It is, of course, an essential for caring relationship, but not exactly the same.
Oh, thank
I
you, madam.
Uh, okay, Professor Shorkar, do you have any other question? Uh,
No, thank you. Thank you. It's not
okay,
professor, it's just Mr. Thank you.
okay. Uh, so just our faculty member of philosophy department, Mumita, has just informed me that Professor Arnab Kumar Mukhopadhyay, he just want to share his some of his views here. So Professor
Okay.
Mukhopadhyay, you please, can you please proceed? You please go ahead. Professor Mukhopadhyay, can you please unmute yourself and please share your views with all of us?
Thank you, madam. Madam, I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So it was indeed a very fantastic lecture, and I was very enlightened. But I don't have any questions actually, but I have two observations. If Honorable Speaker, ma'am, allow me, then I can share.
Of course, it did.
The thing is, ma'am, the with the notion, with the way you have presented your view, and I'm particularly very, I can relate certain things that we have in our society, we have a very serious problem in two ways. Why you have talked about the wrong information, about the inadequate information, you have talked about the necessity or requirement for empathy and care, reason. But the question is why this pool of wrong information is actually emerging. That is one point. And the second thing is, what is the over and above? Obviously, you have explained it in a very well detail, minute detail, in fact, that how does this empathy can play a very pivotal role in combating this pandemic. But the 2 points that I want to make, first of all, have you ever seen, madam, anyone from philosophy discipline or a pure virologist or a clinical scientist in any news media saying something or in any print media saying something? Obviously, the answer will be no. And the most problematic thing is those who are working, they are indeed working silently. And in our countries, not only in India, almost it's a trend that economists, they are talking about politics. Those politicians, they talk about, and they are doing everything except this giving political good governance. And civil society is very much confused with stigma of this COVID-19 disease. At the same time, they are very confused with this new normal thing. And that is the basic point. That is the reason, as I believe, the whole set of this inadequate information, this pool of wrong information is being emerged. And this is the basic point for which I believe we need more and more, in whichever model we try to combat this pandemic. As you know, that apart from a philosophy student, I am directly trying to do certain things with my foundation to assist and to be with certain people, certain section of people. In this case, what is most important, unless and until I at least try to be empathetic with my subjects, with my target group, I possibly will not be even to become I quote, Dr. Asthana as depicted in Munna Bhai MBBS. In the film Munna Bhai MBBS, who happens to be a very great doctor, without any empathy or sympathy towards his patient. However, his medical excellence cannot be challenged. But then again, since this pandemic is not only an issue of physical problem, as well as it affects us mentally for various reasons. As you very rightly pointed out, that human beings are beings with reason as well as emotion. So empathy is definitely there is a very big role, or I must say a very pivotal role to play in whichever way, in whichever model, uh, in whichever path we choose to combat, to get out of this pandemic. Thank you, madam.
Okay. You made a very good observations, because why such a pool of wrong or distorted or partially true information emerging, you rightly pointed out, because the scientists themselves, the virologists themselves, are, to them also this is a new experience, and so they themselves are confused. And as I also agree with you that empathy is, at this moment, critical moment, empathy is what is needed to to uh, console people mentally, to take care of their mental health. For physical health, there are doctors, but alongside the physical problem, physical uncomfortableness, there is mental uncomfortableness also. And their empathy definitely plays a pivotal role. And when you say that many organizations are working silently, I agree with you that some of them have empathy, because I didn't say that it is not possible to have empathy with uh, a group of persons. In actually, empathy is a face-to-face relation where the person empathizing knows the person being empathized, but it but the empathy can also be acquired when someone is doing not for just a particular known person, but for a community at large. It is possible, and that's what I wanted to say, that if we can add a little bit of empathy even in such governmental or non-governmental works, welfare works, then the purpose of those works will be more fruitful.
Uh, so I humbly request all the participants, please, if you have any other question, please unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay, I believe there is no other question from anyone. So this is a vote of thanks part of the session.
Ma'am, may I be allowed to say
Yeah, yeah,
another word, if you can allow me?
yeah, sure, sir.
I believe I'm not doing any causing any problem with the whole coordination.
No, absolutely not. You just go ahead.
Ma'am, if you can allow me, I'm requesting Dr. Basu, if you can allow me to, I just want to present my screen just for a minute to just to share a particular thing with you and my fellow colleagues.
Yeah, sure. You, Dr. Basu.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Is the screen visible?
No, at least I could see.
Yeah, I can see it. What about others? Everyone can see it, the screen, which is being shared by Professor Mukhopadhyay.
Yes, it is visible.
It's visible. Ma'am,
It's visible.
you are not able to see it, right?
No, no, I'm not able to see it.
Okay, ma'am.
Madam, you have to click on the Ornodaz icon in the right of your screen.
Ma'am, can I request you to do something? Just
Yes.
go, yeah, go to the top right hand corner. You can see one icon called people. People, can you see the icon called people?
Yeah.
Just click on that. You will get a list of participants.
Okay.
Okay, just look for Arnab Kumar Mukhopadhyay. Arnab Kumar Mukhopadhyay.
Okay, but I can't find.
Arnab Kumar Mukhopadhyay. There is one Arnab Kumar Mukhopadhyay just in the upper part of the list. I mean, in the beginning part, there are only Arnab. Just click on that.
Yeah, I find it.
Yeah, click on that. Click on that Arnab Kumar Mukhopadhyay.
But I'm clicking, but
It's not coming.
no, I find Arnab Kumar Mukhopadhyay, but it's not coming.
Okay, just click on the right hand arrow, drop down arrow.
Oh yes, now it is on my screen.
Okay, okay, you can see the screen. Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, what I wanted to, I just wanted to share a particular point that you have raised, which I have mentioned earlier, that the combination of both reason and empathy. Ma'am, if you can see my screen, that is a particular model with which we actually try to address this issue practically, empirically. There you will find that in the left hand side there is a strategic unit. In my monitorship, we have 3 doctors from different specialization, 2 statisticians, 1 virologist, 7 social scientists, 2 mathematicians, and 5 economists. These are the strategic unit that we have chosen purely on the basis of reason. 3 doctors, 1 from medicine, 1 from psychology, and 1 from pediatric medicine. We have chosen 2 statisticians, 1 just to collect data which are relevant and established, and next is just to collect the different socially pertinent data. 1 virologist is sufficient. 7 social scientists we have chosen just in order to address different class, caste, and different divisions that fortunately or unfortunately we have. 2 mathematicians, 1 just to project the different modeling, algorithmic models, which may be projective model we call, and 1 is just to calculate the data, and 5 economists to address this socio-political and clinical issue from the perspective of macro and micro in both ways. However, if you can see the right side, there will find 2 units. 1 is the functional unit and 1 is the operational unit. In functional unit, we have computer scientists, IC experts, AV operators, means audiovisual operators and callers, to connect to people. This is strictly technical. However, in the next part, in the operational unit, you will find we have psychiatrists, just to talk to people, address their not only physical but also mental issues. We have dietitians to in order to avoid myths of what to eat, what not to eat, as well as in whichever economic condition they are now in, what maybe they can have just to build, just to enhance their immunity. And the most important part is the creative team. There we have 9 members, one painter, one mimic artist, one vocalist, one percussionist, one classical singer, and one commercial singer, and one storyteller. This is just because that you have pointed out, one distinguished guest somehow asked you, how should we get out of this problem, out of these mental issues? And you have advised that person that maybe keeping us busy in different works. And this is this is the particular reason for which we have chosen this particular creative team. They, even in case where certain people, they even fail to make them engaged in certain cognitive work, we somehow or other manipulate that person in order to get that person out of any mental trauma, any depression and all. And we communicate through our AV operators, through our callers, we communicate with that person, and we try to entertain that person and try to keep that person busy in a, which we call, soft mental state. And there are mobile volunteers. They are basically the person who, again, with proper empathy, just reach different corner of the affected area, different suffering people, and try to meet their needs. Thank you, madam.
Madam, should we continue or will you say anything?
No, yes, you continue.
Okay. There is another question which I just received in the chat box. This is from Professor Madhurima Bhattacharya. She is asking, is there any theory that talks about the joint application of reason and empathy to resolve moral problem?
Actually, such theories are being walked out because the early feminist thinkers, they took caring relationship as an alternative to justice, which is based on reason. But thinkers like ethicists like Virginia Held and many others are now trying to make a theory which will incorporate both justice and caring, maintaining their distinct characteristics intact. But these are in the process of being worked out. There are many books and articles being written on this.
Okay. So, as there is no other question, I am proceeding to the vote of thanks part. Before going to the vote of thanks, I just want to make one announcement that feedback form has already been shared in the chat box for several times. Participants are requested to fill in the feedback form before 7 p.m. Tonight. After 7 p.m., the link will not work. So I will request all the participants to please either you fill in the feedback form right now, or you please copy the feedback link and store somewhere, because once this session is closed, that feedback form will not be available anymore. Now, first, I'd like to thank our honorable speaker, Dr. Shamjukta Basu Madam, who despite her busy schedule has found time to grace this session. And this is our great honor, Madam. And I extend my thanks to our principal sir, who has extended his all possible support and encouragement for organizing this program. And I like to thank all the faculty members of Department of Philosophy for conceptualizing this wonderful webinar, for taking all the initiatives, for organizing such an enriching webinar. And I owe my heartiest gratitude to all the distinguished IQAC members, without whose continuous support this program could not have been successful. And a special thanks goes to Professor Ratul Nondi of Department of Education for his untiring effort to managing several parts of technical side. And my heartfelt thanks to all my colleagues and friends present over here. Finally, on behalf of our college, Ddmrm Motijil Rabindra Mahavidyalaya, I would like to express my appreciation to all the participants who have found time out of their busy duties to attend this webinar. So thanks once again for being with us. One more announcement, that we are organizing more webinars in the last week of August and as well as in the first week of September. Probably one from Department of Philosophy once again, and one from Department of History. The details of those webinars will be posted in our website. Please visit our website and get the details. Come and join with us. Thank you, madam.
Thank you too also.
Thank you. So participants, you may please log off.